Okay.
Okay, we are recording, and we are here. I'm Ed Ferrola with my good buddy Bruce Recant, and we like to talk about things that, whether they make sense or not. We were just talking about haircuts and the lack of the ability. I never thought, Bruce, that I would actually look forward to the day that I could actually get a haircut again. I never realized that I had so many different minds of its own in my head.
True.
It's like horrible, you know. And the bad thing now about Zoom stuff is that you're constantly looking at yourself as you're talking. And I thought, man, I really am as ugly as people thought I was. But
Well, you can no longer deceive yourself. You know, you get out of the shower, you get ready, and you're like, wow, that's a good looking guy. Now in Zoom, you know, that is over. That deception is over.
yeah, and,
Anyway.
and it may have always been a deception. And thank God we have that deception, because otherwise we would have been like hiding ourselves or committing ourselves. But I like the moose look that you got. It's working.
Thanks.
It's working for me. So anyway, you know, speaking about all this craziness, you know, I'm kind of struck by the fact that I think we said this last week too, that the more you put masks on, the more it unmasks different things here related to what's going on out there. And just a couple of news items, but more business oriented. I was struck by two things that came out this week. One is GE said they're finally out of the light bulb business, which is their last foray and last link to a direct consumer world, and that Hertz Rent-A-Cars is filing for bankruptcy. You know, when you think about it, let's just chat for a moment about GE getting out of the light bulb business. And clearly they've been doing a lot more in the industrial area for years, big heavy equipment and so forth. So, you know, does it really matter at this point in time that they're out of that? What do you think?
Well, you know, we bring good things to life. You know, to me, it's one of the great American brands that crossed industrial and business and consumer, and I guess it's just a sign of the times. Certainly, the light bulb business, you know, had turned into a commodity business, but now it's a high-tech business with all these specialty bulbs and lighting and temperature controls. So to me, I'm disappointed. I'm saddened by it. And a company that can make jet engines and locomotives and turbines for big hydro power dams certainly should be able to design state-of-the-art light bulbs that they can get an effective return for. So from that perspective, I'm just sad. And I'm saddened by the fact that I think of this as, you know, when you think about General Electric, light bulbs are certainly one of the first things that comes to my mind. There's just no two ways about it. I don't think of turbines and locomotives. I first think of light bulbs.
Yeah.
So certainly it's a changing of the guard at the very least.
Well, you know, you kind of question some of these things, but there's obviously a lot of smart people that know about basis points and market shares and numbers and that kind of stuff. But at the end of the day, the importance of emotional connections with your various publics. My wife worked at GE for a number of years. In fact, she was there when Jack Welch started taking over. And at that point in time, he was selling off the housewares, a lot of the other consumer goods to Black & Decker. And others, and he had sort of a town hall, and she asked the question. She goes, why are we getting out of toasters? He goes, she said, all these are products that are in front of people that they see every day. And he goes, why would I want to have, I'm paraphrasing, why would I want to have people out there seeing junk? And I thought that was always a telltale statement, saying, what do you mean they're junk, and why do you think they're junk? And then you're not thinking enough about that real connection that is out there. So that while you may be making tons and tons of money off of jet engines, and those are the big things, if you have a consumer product like a light bulb, the essence of illumination it shows that you've got some kind of sensitivity and link to ultimately who you really are serving. Because even if you're betting the ranch on jet engines, it's still about the safety and reliability that is going to be conveyed to the people sitting in the passenger seats of those planes, not just the corporate buyer of those jet engines. And I liken it to when Sears decided a number of years ago to get rid of the Dream Book or the Wish Book.
Right.
Yeah, you could argue these are good or smart financial decisions, but horrible brand decisions because they cut off an emotional connection that they didn't think about its value or how to retain that, regardless of what the device was in essence. So anyway, who knows?
No, it's just like listen, it's not the type of company you would expect to turn the page. In other words, give up on its kind of household name capacity, but it has. It has. I mean, I guess it hasn't because they're licensing the name, right, for the light bulbs.
It will be. I don't know how many years it goes for. It doesn't sound like they're getting a whole lot of money. I think it was like 250 million or whatever in corporate terms. That's not a whole lot, but it is what it. But to your point, you said it earlier. They had this great program about we bring good things to life, and now all of a sudden, without that, you have the risk of being out of sight, out of mind. But anyway, clearly, when decisions like that are made, they're access to a lot more information than we have. But that kind of brings me. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, but that brings me. I call that the coffee lady rule. Sometimes you remember. You'd have the carts with the woman that would come with the big coffee urn and for the coffee break at 10 o'clock. Most companies, they came up in freight elevators, or big companies, they would walk from section to section of the offices. And all these places eliminated that 15 or 20,000. Now we're going back a few years. This $15,000 or $20,000 a year because they didn't like everybody kind of huddling around her.
Right.
But people exchanged ideas. They caught up with work. They talked, they alerted people to things that were coming their way. It was actually useful time waiting in line to get your buttered roll and cup of coffee. Then what happens? They eliminate that $15,000 a year, $20,000 a year part-time job. And they have people that now have to leave the office or walk a half a mile to the cafeteria or so now they're out of pocket 20 minutes or a half hour, and they're not talking with people in their specific area about specific issues that may further the business. I just look at some of these decisions as saving money now without a vision for what role those things had in their corporate life.
Yeah, no, and that you're spot on with that. Absolutely, we tend to lose value of those connections. And that's kind of a natural segue to the second one that we brought up earlier. Hertz Rent-A-Car. What do I hear? Oh, you're in New York. So are the walls falling down? Or is there construction, or is that gas?
Somebody's drilling somewhere.
Bank robbers.
If the ceiling falls in on me, let me know.
Well, because everyone's been secluded too much. Someone's trying to break out. It's going to come through your. Boy, if that comes through your ceiling, and we'll get all sorts of viewership for this. But,
yeah, really. But, man on Zoom dies as ceiling falls.
I know, live. Right. Yeah, I'd have to get like the SEO words out for that, the keyword search.
Right.
But Hertz, an iconic American brand. They created the rent-a-car business pretty much. Going back in 1912 or whatever it was, or 1918, with a few of these cars in Chicago. And you think about what's going on. They're filing for bankruptcy. And then the Wall Street Journal had this long article about all this stuff about what they bought, dollar rent-a-car, different decisions. But in the middle of it was this sort of nugget of sort of the focus of the problem. And that is, they decided a number of years ago to bet the ranch on sedans when the rest of the world was starting to gravitate a lot more to SUVs. And with long-term leases from their end onto these sedans, and then these cars were aging out, and people don't want them. And so once again, you start thinking about making decisions based upon what looks like something smart financially, but totally ignoring that emotional connection and the value of that brand magic touch point you have with people. If you think about when you buy a car, oftentimes you say, listen, I want to get something that makes me feel good, that I like. When I rent a car, maybe I can rent up a little bit. I could try something out I normally don't get. And here they've commoditized it, and there's no shock to me that they're filing for bankruptcy. Here, if I can't see this well, but I mean, this was like a billboard they had back in probably the 1950s or early 1960s about, rent the car of your dreams. So rent the cars you like to drive. So that was their mantra earlier on. And so they reached the point where, no, rent the cars that we want you to drive because it's cheaper for us. Anyway.
Well, I guess they're not number one anymore, is all I can say to that. Another great brand that forgot what it was, you've got a business market, a consumer market. You remember the old OJ commercials running through the airports?
Yeah.
About, it was convenience, it was ease, Hertz #1 club, gold, and all this, but at the end of the day, what brings them down is product mix.
Yeah.
Crazy. This is an issue, we can talk about brands, but brands are as much about leadership as companies are or countries are. It's leadership. That was a leadership vacuum.
Yeah.
Spun off from Ford Motor Company. They didn't have to buy everything from Ford anymore. They didn't they weren't tied to these kind of fleet sales for sedans, I wouldn't think.
No.
It's a lack of imagination.
Well,
now we bitched about
and
it.
Also something very, very basic, and that is know your customer.
There it is.
And know who you're serving. It's not enough to know who you're selling to. It's know who you're serving, because I don't care, whether you're putting out light bulbs, jet engines, or you're renting cars out, or you name the product or line. At the end of the day, you are serving somebody, and they are your bosses. They are the ones that you must be thinking about continuously. And if you do so and do it well, I think you could ride through horrible times like this far better than your competitors that haven't really thought about them in the same way. So easier said than done. I know we've both been on the corporate side when you get sucked into the vortex of having to make these tough decisions. But somewhere along the line, in every single one of these conference rooms and boardrooms, there should be pictures of who they're serving, who their customers are, so that you can constantly have real empathy for them.
Oh, and the other side of the coin.
That's where your money comes from.
Right. And the other thing you should have pictures of is the people that failed to do that and disappeared.
Yeah.
Lessons learned. Lessons learned.
The graveyard. All right.
Well, that wraps us for today.
That wraps it up. So just everybody, just keep making sense. That's all we ask. Have a great week.
Listen to your customers, please.
Listen to them. Absolutely. All right. Have a good one.
You too.
Bye-bye.